At Lonsdale Street Studio, we believe in the power of storytelling to connect people and create change. That's why we're proud to be the production partner for this Running for Resilience podcast.
Great. Well, welcome to the R4R Podcast. And this afternoon, I'm here with Baljit Singh and Tiffany McCormack. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
And this is an interesting podcast. We've been left without grown-up supervision. Matt and Ben are elsewhere. I don't know what they were thinking. But this is an interesting podcast about R4R and Bravery Trust and the work that they're doing for veterans, serving people and their families. And there's an interesting link of these two communities. But let's start by introducing our podcast guests. Singh, tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Singh, and I've been involved with Running for Resilience for quite a few years now, about 6 years, and for Bravery Trek, which is part of Bravery Trust, for 3-4 years now. And looking at both the communities, the work they do is amazing. And that's how my journey started, with working with very different, diverse style of running groups, helping many people like visually impaired for Achilles, or defense veterans at Bravery Trek, or just having a chat, having a run, and listening to people's stories during early morning Running for Resilience runs. So it's been a great journey and a very good learning experience for the past few years.
Singh, I was thinking through as we were preparing for this, the social media that I've seen from you, and we run a fair bit together, and I've seen you in a number of things. You're always capturing a group of people. You're always out there with others and sharing and cheering people up and contributing to others as you do things. And you said you're in R4R and Bravery Trek. How many running groups are you really in?
It's been more than 15 years for running in Canberra, and I have been part of many running groups. And I tell everyone, go and try it. Go and meet people. You'll always learn something new. When I'm running in the morning, I feel free, and I listen to people's stories. Everyone's wearing a mask or going through something. And when you talk to them after the run or after the walk, whatever they're doing, it's a different tone they have because the blood's been running, and they feel feeling quite open about what's going on. They're happy to share and face whatever is coming to life. So I tell most of the people, come for a walk, jog, talk, whatever it is, and the results you'll see after the run will be totally different to what you were feeling in bed.
Yeah, no, look, that's a fantastic intro. And having had the privilege of running alongside you in many groups, I know, Tiff, you've run with Singh a number of times, the joy and that openness that your attitude projects is such a gift. And we're so privileged to share that. So, Tiffany, over to you. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Thanks for having me, Murray, and it was really nice to hear everything you've said, Singy. So I started off with Running for Resilience in 2020. From there, I've moved around a bit, done Bravery Trek, I think since 2021 when you invited me, Murray. I think after we had a chance encounter after the Canberra Marathon. And I think that's kind of sparked my love of running clubs. I'd never really done group running before. I'm currently serving in the Navy. So when I joined the Navy, one thing that I realised, particularly when you're in initial training, you don't have much time alone. And I started running. It actually started with around the February time at Jervis Bay, because in the water, all the phosphorus lights up. So I started running because one day I happened to go for a run down on the beach and my footsteps lit up. So then I started running every single day and I absolutely loved it, but it was always mostly by myself. And I kind of started doing it, I think, for what you were talking about with how good you would feel after a run. And I liked being able to challenge myself and find some resilience. And through R4R, I found my joy of running with other people, which is really nice. And particularly, we've kind of spoken about it before, Murray, but finding a community is really special, particularly with military, where you're traveling around a lot and you're moving constantly. It's nice to be able to find a community, even though R4R, I've come and gone across the years. It's nice that whenever I come back to Canberra, I'm able to come and join. And I know that there'll be people there like yourselves who are wonderful, who I can run with and just have a chat with. And the same goes for Bravery Trek. It was something every single year that, despite where I was able to come together with people who were like-minded, who really cared about our veterans community, and be able to contribute to something and contribute to a community that travelled with me despite where I was, which was really special.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what sort of job do you do in the Navy? You're behind a desk? Is that your normal job in the Navy?
No, so I'm what they call an aviation warfare officer. So I do all of the weapons and tactics in our helicopters, which is a really cool job. It's very interesting, and I get to travel around the world, which is wonderful. My current job, I'm the aide-de-camp to the Governor-General, and she's actually the patron of Bravery Trust. So it was very fitting for me to come into this job, having been with Bravery Trust for a few years now, to now get to work for someone who's so supportive of the organisation, which is really good.
And sort of sliding into a shirt, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Is there a story there behind that?
So there is a story there. So today I actually, I got to work and I read Murray's email more in depth than I had previously, and it told me I should wear my Bravery Trek shirt today, and I had left all of mine at home. Conveniently, because the office holds the patronage, I actually went into our cupboard and there was one of these hanging up ready to go from last year's Bravery Trek walk. So I was very lucky that the office holds all of our shirts from Bravery Trust.
So you stole the Governor-General's shirt anywhere.
Well, I don't know if it was her exact shirt, but it was someone who did it last year.
He may or may not have been the Governor-General. That's a fantastic story and a great way to intro it. And obviously, you know, an incredible role in the Navy that you're doing in your day job when you're not supporting the Governor-General. And you got involved with us in Bravery Trek. We've mentioned Bravery Trek. What's Bravery Trek? Can you give us a thread on that?
So Bravery Trek supports our veterans, particularly in times where they're undergoing hardship, things like financial hardship, which is something that is very important, I think, to recognise within the veteran community, particularly because you often see people leaving the military and they are separated from a sense of community that they would have had. So it's really nice to see an organisation like this that is directly trying to help veterans and bring support to those veterans, and also include a lot of people who are currently serving and also veterans into those community engagements as well, as we see within that kind of month every year.
Yeah.
So,
and it's easy for veterans to get disconnected, and I know of you through your dad, who we served in submarines together many decades ago.
Yes.
You know, there's a museum piece half the way to Melbourne that we both served in, but your family experience would be about that bonding and that camaraderie within the military, but also that separation of those communities as people exit the military and they go on and do other things. Those community bonds break, you know, as you move around, as you move into civilian employment and that sort of thing, and that creates a series of challenges, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And even one element, I think, we had kept somewhat of a strong sense of community throughout since my parents had left the military. But I think a lot of those were connections that we'd had growing up, were all those Navy connections that we'd had from when my dad was serving. And I think so I didn't really notice the support that you require, but it was probably in the last couple of years where I saw particularly him take a lot of support through organisations like DVA, and even financial assistance with the medical side that people go through, because a lot of times people do leave the military and they have a lot of different medical complications. So it was really important then to see how organisations can continue to support veterans years down the track after they've left. And it's more obvious to me now that I'm serving how many of our connections growing up and family friends were actually people that my dad served with, like yourself, and how important those connections are, because a lot of our very fundamental relationships between our families and other close families have stemmed from their time in the military back, 40 years ago, which is really special.
Yeah. No, it is special, and I, count it myself. That's really important. And I come to R4R and bump into people that I was at the Defence Academy with, and great opportunity to rekindle those relationships over time. Now, Singh, coming to you, the R4R community is providing a vital, capability in the community to support those with mental health challenges and trying to reduce the incidence of suicide one life at a time. What's your own take on that, and the way that a normal punter coming along to a run, and there's so many of the runs now, the community is getting bigger and bigger. What's your thread on how the community can support each other from a mental health perspective?
We have seen the community grow, and it is helping we've got results there as well where people have acknowledged, various organizations and charities have acknowledged that, the stats are going down, which is great to see. And the confidence of people is increasing. There's more people who thought they don't know anyone or they don't have a place to go. Now there is a third place. While we were running this morning, somebody mentioned this third place. We all have a family, a work, but sometimes we just need that independent freedom where we can think by ourselves. And it doesn't need to be a run. It can be a walk, jog, just a coffee. And we've been telling people every time, even especially the times when you're sick, come for a walk, just have a chat, have a coffee with someone, because it's not about just physical health, it's the mental health is very important as well. And in the past few years, we have seen the shift that only the runners or the athletes were coming, but now it's everyone is trying to come and volunteer. If you see the number of volunteers we have every evening or Wednesday night or a Tuesday night, the numbers have doubled or tripled. And every volunteer is a person who has been assisted in the past. So that really proves that something is working and the community is growing and trying to help each other. And that's what we want to see in future as well.
Mm. And Singh, you're involved in a number of other running groups. How do these different communities interlock together?
I find after running for so many years, it's not about the speed, the distance, or the pace. It's more about just trying to help each other. I would really encourage everyone to go and run or just participate in something like Bravery Trek. When we ran in Brisbane, we ran with a lot of people. We did 42 Ks for 42 lives lost. And all along the 42 Ks, we met a lot of friends, families, and very close relatives of the people who had lost their lives. It was a very eye-opening experience for myself and for many others as well. And if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have been so closely understood the benefits of Bravery Trek. Same way it goes with Achilles. When you go and walk with a visually impaired person or person with inabilities, you really understand it's not about running or walking or anything. It's all about just giving. And sometimes the joy you get after a walk or helping someone will be much more than anything else you can thought of. And I really encourage people to diversify. There's so many running groups, cycling groups, charity runs. When you run and participate in those, no matter in what way, as a volunteer, as a tail walker, or just volunteering in the end, just at the drink stations, everything adds up because you'll meet someone who's got a purpose and you'll find your purpose as well with them.
Now, Tiffany, another thing in community running we've seen a bit of late, and it's really sad news about safety and particularly women running alone. And we had a local incident in the last few weeks, which is terrible. It's great to see a rallying of a number of communities coming together. How do you perceive things? You've lived in a number of different places. You've you found joy in running by yourself, but you've also run in communities. What's your thread on things there?
I think it's really interesting, Mo. So I feel like Australia generally is quite a safe place, and I've liked to think that that's the case through my running, but I definitely know that a lot of decisions I've made about where I've lived on postings has actually been based around where I could go for a run in the morning. So even my last posting, I specifically chose a place on the south coast that I knew I'd be able to run every morning in the dark and feel safe, which is really interesting because I never would have thought that it was something I would necessarily have to consider, but I definitely play into that when I'm making my decisions about where I run. I think we're pretty lucky where I am, particularly in Canberra. I get to run around the lake in a very open place, and it's nice that in the mornings, if I want to go for a run, I'll generally come to R4R to be able to run with people. But I can see how people would feel unsafe in those situations. So it's nice to know that there are communities where people can run together if they're not feeling safe when they are going for those runs, particularly in the dark, which I think is something that R4R has really worked on as well, given the fact that they're now running so many different runs that you can now really run every day at different times of the day with a community, which is really nice, rather than just, 1 or 2 times a week. So I think that is a nice factor as well if people aren't feeling safe. But it's definitely something that I have noticed. I didn't notice it earlier on, but I've definitely noticed it now that I'm not living on bases as I was in initial training where it's quite safe, that I do pick the place I live pretty much based on where is safe to run in the mornings. Yeah.
Wow. And it's an interesting perspective for Singh and I, where factors that we wouldn't even really take into account there.
Yeah. Well, running makes me feel so safe and free. So I feel like I always try and put myself in a position where running will always feel like that to me. So I always run in very open places.
Yeah.
I find that, I understand that as a female, we feel insecure, but there's a lot of people out there who would feel insecure as well.
Yes.
No matter from what demographic they're coming up or what inabilities they've got. Everyone's got some thought at the back, whether it's dark or this. So we just need to watch out for each other and help and make that place safe as well.
And I think it's great there's all these different tribes of runners around town. Like I see running groups coming the other way with gazelles, and I've belonged to running groups with people I've never run with because I'm at the tail end, chatting. They're at the front end puffing, and where betwixt the two shan't meet. They've had their coffee and breakfast and shower and headed off before I've even got close to getting back in, and yet it's a great environment for them. It's a great environment for me. Fascinating. Can we go to Bravery Trust and Bravery Trek for a while? Supporting veterans through emergency financial support, counselling and education. And for those that aren't familiar with Bravery Trust, it was initially set up to support a small area of defence. It's now much broader and doing some great work, and the demand is going up. And I think as we see cost of living pressures and what have you, we're seeing a shift there. And initially their work was giving money to people to put meals on tables, to put fuel in a car so you can get the kids to school, to pay a bond. I was hearing a story about a couple that had separated and the father didn't have money for a bond, so was homeless and didn't have somewhere to host his kids, and his own mental health was suffering because it couldn't, accommodate the kids. That idea of providing that financial support sadly still persists, and there's still a need for that. But I think the great work the Trust is doing is in supporting the counselling to help people dig themselves out of the hole. And we know that your financial security is just a foundational thing that a lot of us take for granted, isn't it? That falls out and you lose a lot. And so many other things in life, your relationships suffer, it can affect your employment, it can affect your mental health and what have you. So the counselling is helping people dig themselves out of the hole, advocating on their behalf with financial institutions. Some of the financial institutions do some really bodgy stuff, get people committing to loans that they really can't afford and shouldn't be getting, and then getting those loans wiped or getting a payment plan put in place that the person can afford and setting them on a right path. And then education. I have this theory about veterans, and being one I can probably say this, that we're gifted kids with learning difficulties. There's these superpowers on one hand of these, you've been in a helicopter, all this complexity and stuff going on, but then you're not dealing with a profit and loss statement. You're not doing things that other people in normal jobs would do. And from a family perspective, you might be getting meals on the table for you, housing provided, stuff like that. You come out and you're at a loss in a number of areas. That financial literacy can often be missing. And when you're removed from that environment, makes it a difficult environment for some. So I think that idea of, yes, there's the handouts and support, the meals on the table. There's the counselling to dig someone out of a hole and keep them out of it, because initially they just kept having provide money to the same people again and again. They've been able to stop that cycle. And then the education to say, let's prevent people getting in that situation, that impact on their families, that impact on their mental health from the get-go. Now, Singh, you've been around Bravery Trek for a number of years. You've come face to face with some of those use cases. Breaking that cycle is incredibly important, isn't it?
Yeah, when I started with Bravery Trek, you introduced me 4 years ago, or when we were in Sydney, I had no clue what Bravery Trek did because it was just for a run for me. But as I kept meeting more and more people, listening to their stories, I was amazed to see how you just take it for granted that anyone coming out of military or is just taken care of and they don't have any vulnerabilities. But everyone's going through something or the other. And I think we all need to participate, whether we are have a background in military or not, or we have family members or not. But if they are ready to serve the country, we should be serving them as well. As a non-military person, I would say it is everyone's responsibility to serve them or to help them out when they need it most. So we all should be chipping in and helping in whatever way we can, whether it's a charity event, whether it's raising funds, or even raising awareness. There's a lot of people out there who might not be aware that they can reach out. So this is one of the mediums to raise, so that if anyone knows somebody is going through or some of their family members are going through, they can also just reach out to them, and probably it's as close as picking up the phone and making that, dialing that number.
Tiff?
Yeah, I agree completely with what Singhy said and what you've said, Murray. The only one thing I would add is you kind of touched on this, but I actually was talking about it with someone this morning in an event. The thing about the military is you get all of these incredible opportunities and you never have to really worry about a stable income. And as someone who joined at 17, I've always had a stable income, which is really something that you almost take for granted until you leave. And I think it's at the point where people do leave after they've served however long, sometimes 20, 30 years, where they've always had a very stable income that they know is going to happen every fortnight. And they have that stability to then be faced with a more unstable world, and how do you make sure that you're bringing in a suitable amount of money or whatever role they decide to go into. So it's really an element that I think sometimes we forget, because when you leave the military, you often think of a loss of community, or you think of areas like PTSD. But one thing is the fact that you've gone from a long career of financial stability, however that might look for each individual, and then you're facing something that you've really never faced. And for a lot of people, that's after having joined at 17 or 18 years old. So really their entire adult life has been something they've never had to worry about, which I think is why it's important for organisations such as Bravery Trust that do support that element of veterans once they do leave the military.
And of course there's also PTSD and sort of health challenges that people incur while they're in the military. They might have served in operations and come home with that trauma.
Yes.
Or that physical or mental impairment. And so you snap away from that community, that financial stability, and then you're faced with still carrying that luggage.
Yes.
You sort of think, I'm done, my service is done, but they can't just check this at the gate when they post off their last base or their last ship. Yeah.
Particularly if they are quite tired after having strenuous careers away from home. A lot of the times I can imagine you would feel like you just wanted to relax, and then all of a sudden you're hit with a lot of different things that you need to consider as well. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting take on it. Yeah. The R4R community has a lot of serving people and veterans. It is sort of one of those hidden things. You'll find admirals there most weeks. You'll find people serving in all different capacities, veterans. So there's this sort of hidden military group, sort of sub-community within the R4R community, and I know they're sort of reaching out and trying to support others within the community, whether they're military or not. But it's interesting, we often lose sight of that. It's only if you sort of pick faces in the crowd and bad haircuts and that sort of thing, and sort of thread it through.
Well, funnily enough, with the military community R4R, I find that particularly since I've moved back to Canberra, or anyone I know that has posted to Canberra, every single person, I find myself saying that they should go to Running for Resilience. So even this morning I ran into someone who I hadn't seen in quite a few years who's just posted back to Canberra, and the first thing I said was, oh, you've got to come for Running for Resilience on Wednesday nights. So I think it's one of those things that there is a few veterans or current serving personnel, and they're inviting everyone they know. Even the Wednesdays that I've been coming recently, it's been with a group of 5 or 6 different people that I know who are posted to Canberra. So it's actually a great little secret community at R4R for veterans as well.
Nice. And Singh, I know a few years ago R4R sat down and said, how do we be better, not bigger? And the leadership team sort of had a look at things, and they focused on getting better. And a number of little things, changes that people wouldn't notice, but those changes come through. Probably the change in the route around the island was one of those things. Adding additional venues and stuff like that. But that as it got better, it naturally got bigger. And then they turned around and went, wait on, if we're making it better, it's going to be bigger. We've just got to, bite that bullet. And obviously they've had supporters like Jess and Rich come on board and support, that growth, not only in the number of people, but the way they support each other. Seeing how do we avoid that big and that, coming along 600 people in, summer daylight savings on a Wednesday night, how do we avoid that being an impediment to that richness of the community, that you can continue to support each other from a mental health perspective?
Oh, I don't know whether avoid is the word. I would say, how can we encourage people to come out no matter where they are? They don't need to come to R4R. We should be having communities everywhere where a person should feel very safe and comfortable to go out for coffee or a walk with community of people. So if we can spread the R4R message across different suburbs in Canberra or across the borders, that's all I think should be the message.
Yeah, that's good. Tiff, have you got any thoughts there?
Well, I think one element is no matter how big it gets, I think the big principle for R4R is caring for each other and the community that we've built up there. So I think it's even no matter how big it gets, if you go there and you see people who haven't got any connections within R4R, maybe it's their first time or they're alone, inviting them into the little group that you might be running with that day, or if you see them as you're running and you happen to be doing the same pace, have a chat with them and run along with them for the day. Because the scariest thing ever, I think, is going to a running club when you don't know someone and then trying to work out who you should run with. And one of the things about R4R that makes it wonderful as a running club is the fact that everyone is so inviting. So just no matter how big it gets, still looking out and caring for the individual people that have come and braved coming to a new running club. Yeah.
And I think there's that thing of when you finish that run, you've got that runner's high of finishing the run. But when you think of it and go, who have I done something to support?
Yes.
It's almost like it's a free run. Your donation is in supporting others. Yeah. And how do you think about how you make that donation? Yeah.
Yeah, we have added that element as well, which is we've got volunteers as first-timers in their West, and that has helped a lot. People who don't have any connections, who are new, they have a place to meet other new people as well. And the existing people who have been coming for a while, they know all these people are new. They just try and make a conversation, have a chat with them, make them feel comfortable, and that is helping as well. So no matter how big the group goes, there's always someone you can talk to. And sometimes you don't even need to talk to. You just come and walk with the newcomers or anything. Somebody will make you feel welcome. There's always people out there who are welcoming everyone.
Yeah, no, that's good. And yes, those volunteers with the vest stand out, and it's a great someone to go to. But it doesn't absolve us as the rest of the community to do our bit as well, which is fantastic. So, Singy, Bravery Trek this year, you went and did a recce run the other day. Can you tell us a bit about what's happening with Bravery Trek in Canberra this year?
Yeah, we're planning Dusk to Dawn. So in October, is it
17th and 18th?
17th and 18th of October, Dusk to Dawn. After the last post ceremony, We'll be running around the War Memorial. We'll keep it near the newly built War Memorial, very well lit area. You can come in at any time. You can run as teams. You can run as individuals. You can run as less you want, or you can do the full 12-hour dusk to dawn solo or in teams. So there's various options available. And if you're not a runner, you can come and walk. You can even come and support people volunteering, getting coffees for them at night. I know John is one of a very good volunteer who brings coffee for us at 2 a.m. runs. So we're looking forward to that. But anyway, you can come, spread the word, and come and be part of such a great event.
Yeah, it's going to be quite iconic, and the first time we've done it around the War Memorial, and we've just got their agreement to run the event there, so that's going to be quite special. Tiff, you up for it?
I'm very excited. I have, sadly, as you both know, been injured for a couple of years now. And so I've had a lot of years of running in pain. And at the moment, I'm currently running pain-free. So as long as I can continue that, I'm so excited because it's my favourite thing. And the bravery treks I've done in the past, there's been some times where I've been in the hurt locker, as they say, and everyone has pulled me through. I think the first really long run I did was the 57 kilometre we did for Bravery Trek, and that was hard in the hills of Sydney. And I think I have a recollection, I think we were together, Murray, getting a Coke out of a random service station as we went past near Watson's Bay.
It was Vaucluse. So
yes.
I'd made the silly promise that if I raised, for every $1,000 I raised in the last week before the run, I would run that distance continuously from the base of Heartbreak Hill. So if I raised $1,000, I'd run a K up Heartbreak Hill, and if it was 3,000, I'd run 3Ks. They raised enough to get me to the finish line, so I couldn't stop between the base of Heartbreak Hill and HMAS Watson at the end. So the base was at the 50k mark. So it was hard 7Ks. I caught up with you, or you caught up with me, or something at Vaucluse, which is the top of Heartbreak Hill, and I said, I didn't have a phone on me. I didn't have any money. I said, Tiffany, can you buy me a Coke? I need a Coke to get me to the finish. And he bought me a Coke, which got me to the finish, which I'm eternally grateful for. So thank you. So look, great opportunity to contribute to R4R, and I think it's fantastic. To Bravery Trek in October, 17th and 18th of October. We'll get some details out through the R4R socials about that, and the Bravery Trek website. A great opportunity to get involved there. But I think it's also fantastic, this intermingling of the support for different communities, and how we can support veterans within the R4R community. R4R can support the veterans community, and that's a fantastic thing. Sing, some last thoughts from you.
No,
He's speechless. No, that's never happened.
What is going on, Singy?
That's never
I
happened.
thought you wrapped it up, so I was in my zone. But
So, Singy, in the Sydney Marathon last year for Bravery Trek, you had a beer at the 36 kilometre mark and a spa at the 39 kilometre mark. What's it going to be at the War Memorial this year to get you through the night?
last time we did the Dusk to Dawn in Darwin, we had the Kiwi Air Force beat me. I came second, and she did 76 Ks, I think.
Yeah.
And I did 67 Ks.
Yeah.
So I should keep an eye and make sure that
There's
Australia...
no Kiwis?
No, there are Kiwis, but this time Australia would get them.
So it's competition getting you through
Yeah.
this
Competition.
one.
Nice. I like that. Tiff?
What's going to get me through? I think it's going to be, I will have told too many people that I'm doing it, and I would have committed too much, and so I won't be able to let anyone down. So
Right.
that's usually my trick, is I'll tell even the 4 marathon 44 days a couple of years ago, I think I told too many people that I was running them all. So despite the fact I was injured, I couldn't back out. So I simply had to do it. So that'll probably be the same for this one. I'll just
Nice.
tell as many people as I can so that I don't have the option to stop.
Beautiful. Well, look, thanks for joining us, Singh and Tiffany. Great to have a chat this afternoon. Look, fantastic R4R backlog podcasts. I've listened to Lily's, which was just incredible. Jess last week, in terms of her work for Bravehearts, and she's got that coming up next weekend. It's 2 weekends. I think it's the 5th of July in Canberra. If you're around, get out and support Jess and the 777 Bravehearts team in support of kids and supporting them with challenges with sexual assault and sexual abuse, which just shouldn't happen. But fantastic work Jess is doing there in fundraising. I think this is her 5th 7 marathons, 7 days, so quite a story. Great to have you join us today on the R4R podcast. Matt, I hope we've done an okay job, and Ben, you shouldn't leave the keys with us again. But anyway, really, really good to be out today. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for
Thanks
giving
a
us
lot.
this opportunity.
Yeah, just keep moving.
Yes.
Yeah, just keep moving. Cheers.
Thanks.